Thanks to a certain global pandemic, Livestream video switches aren't really that much of a novelty anymore. Products like Blackmagic's ATEM Mini have become very popular, but today we're looking at a contender. Feelworld has sent me their Livepro L1V1, and it's looking like an incredibly compelling option. You might know Feelworld for their camera monitors, so it only makes sense that the L1V1's biggest advantage over the ATEM Mini is the onboard LCD screen. This has got a 2-inch display that you can monitor all 4 of your inputs from, and this is absolutely tremendous because you can actually see what you're about to cut to. One of the biggest pains about the Blackmagic ATEM Mini is how you're always flying blind. It has no screen and not even a multi-view output on the base model, so you might never know if there's an issue with one of your inputs until after you've made the cut, which also means your error is now being broadcast live. So having an onboard display goes a really long way for peace of mind during operation. For connecting to your computer, the Livepro L1 takes a USB Type-A connection, and your computer will be able to pick it up as a webcam input. In OBS, you'll also be able to see it as a video capture device, and setup should be as simple as plug and play. This system maxes out at 1080p 60fps. It has 4 inputs and 1 output, and because you have that output, you can use the device as a standalone video switcher/mixer even without connecting it to a computer. What's really nice about the L1V1 is you get multi-view functionality, and you can independently enable it for the HDMI and USB outputs. That means if you're streaming online, you can hook up a display to the HDMI output and use that as a multi-view, and vice versa. If your main output is to an HDMI display, you can use your computer as the multi-view monitor. Multi-view is completely absent on the base model ATEM Mini, so definitely a big plus for the L1V1 in this regard. And remember, even if you're not outputting multi-view externally on the L1V1, you still have the built-in display to monitor your 4 inputs. The multi-view has the added bonus of showing the audio levels for each input, plus a preview of your live program out, and also a preview of what your next cut is going to look like. When compared to the ATEM Mini, they do share a very similar size footprint, but because the ATEM has no display, every adjustable parameter has its own button. On the L1, there are dramatically less buttons because you change your settings by navigating through the display menu, and because of that different design, the operation style for these two devices are fundamentally different, so that's something to take note of. The L1 also sports a T-bar, which also means the way you operate this is a lot more similar to the industry-style broadcast systems. The T-bar is basically a transition controller. The progress of the transition follows the bar's physical position. So you have whichever input you're showing live at the moment, you then select the next input you want to transition to, then you push the bar to drive the actual transition. For users who are new to this, the style of operation might be a bit cumbersome, so you can actually change the switching mode to completely ignore the T-bar, just change it from T-bar to fast mode, and it will simply cut to whichever inputs button you press right away. You can still do animated transitions this way, you just have to pre-select an animation and define a duration for it. Operation-wise, you can think of the L1V1 having 2 different menus. Pressing the menu button would bring you to the main setting menu, and the SW button would cycle you through what is essentially an image control menu. The first page lets you choose a transition, second page lets you tweak the switching mode, and third page lets you set up picture-in-picture. To do that, you first select a main image, then turn picture-in-picture on by selecting one of the positions, then choose the input to be in your superimposed image, and if you're using the T-bar, it doesn't go live until you switch. You might also have noticed that there is a 4th page labeled Effects, but that doesn't seem to be enabled at the moment, so I suppose there would be a future firmware update for that. And one more thing, the L1 has an audio output jack, something incredibly basic but is surprisingly missing on the Blackmagic ATEM Mini. You do also have a few options for audio input sources on the L1V1. Embedded means I'll use the audio from the HDMI signal for whichever input is being displayed live. External would be taking the audio from the line-in jack, and finally you can set any one of the 4 HDMI inputs as the sole audio source. All in all, Feelworld's L1V1 is a product that has a lot to offer at an extremely compelling price point. $299 puts it in the same price range as the ATEM Mini, but it's got features like multi-view that Blackmagic's only offering in their Pro model, which costs almost twice as much. But the biggest thing for me is still the built-in display that you can see all your inputs from. The unit itself is also quite nicely built. The only part I wish Feelworld can improve on is the T-bar. It's got a tiny bit of wiggle to it, but aside from that, build quality is very much acceptable. I'll leave purchase links below if anyone's keen on picking up one of these, and if you enjoyed this review, maybe try checking out a few more of mine.